Today we're going to be doing your 2025 guide to conventional home appraisals. That's right. Now, look, here's the thing. The reason why I said conventional is because VA has their own protocol on appraisals. And I wanted to do a video about conventional appraisals because look, that is the most common type of loan done in America. So when I say conventional, we're talking about your Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, first-time home buyer, 3% down. Maybe you're doing 5% down. Maybe you're doing 20% down. Likely it's going to fall in that conventional bucket. So this video, we're going to talk about what to expect with cost, timing, who orders it, all the little details that as a home buyer you don't know, but you're wondering. Okay, if you're new to the channel, if you're not, say it with me. I'm a mortgage lender licensed in 50 states. My team is one of the top purchase teams in America. I've been a mortgage lender for 18 years. On my team, we've got Christina, lender for 30 years, 50 states. Jen Anderson, lender for 27 years. She's in like 27 states. You know, Sam, 7 years. Amber, Linda, they've both been loan officers for 12 years. So we've seen a lot, okay? Let's start with who orders the appraisal, because that's the question I get the most. The lender does, okay? It's always the lender. So if you're like, let's say you're buying a house from a friend and you're like, well, but my friend already has an appraisal. Can't we just use that? No, okay? If you're like, well, I want to pick the appraisal. Can I pick the appraiser? I'm paying for it. No. With the rules, the lender has to order the appraisal. Now, if you say, Jen, I want you to call Bob Jones, I want you to get the appraisal through him. No. Guys, I can't pick the appraisal. I can't have anything to do with picking the appraiser. No, no, no. Since 2008, there were very strict rules drawn between lender and appraiser. And it's because prior to 2008, there was so much corruption. There were instances where there were appraisals of houses, but then the bank went out and it was a bare lot. You know, the lender had bribed the appraiser had done a fake appraisal. You know, you had values that made no sense, but people were being bribed. So there's a very strong line between the lender and the appraiser. As a home buyer, if a lender ever says to you, oh yeah, we'll just have John do your appraisal. Guys, you don't want your lender and appraiser in bed together, right? A little graphic, but you don't want, there's no benefit to you. As a home buyer, you want a honest, unbiased appraisal. If the appraiser's buddies with your loan officer, they're gonna try to get the deal to come in even if it's not good for you. Same thing, if the appraiser's buddy with the real estate agent, you can see the same behavior. So if a lender's telling you, oh, don't worry, I'll just get John to do the appraisal, you'll be fine, I would be looking at another lender, okay? You want an unbiased appraisal. Great. How much does an appraisal cost? It's gonna vary, okay? It varies based on where you are in the country. So for instance, let's say you're buying a new build house in a city, right? Probably 500, 600 bucks, okay? If you're financing a ranch in Wyoming, I would say over $1,000, okay? It's gonna depend on the location of the property, how many appraisers are in the area, and the complexity of the property. So for instance, if you're buying a multi-unit, those appraisals are much more expensive because they have to take into consideration all the units, they have to look for the comparable sales. You know, if you're buying a house where you're in a very populous area, meaning there's a lot of appraisers, and you're buying what someone may argue is a cookie cutter house, those are usually cheaper because it's not as much work for the appraiser, okay? And then the big one is how remote is the property, okay? Now, there are other factors. So timing is important. Generally, I like to order the appraisal the first few days of the transaction because I don't want you to have to pay for a rush. And the reason I say that is there's some markets where rushing the appraisal can cost $150, right? Let's say you're in Chicago and we need an appraisal back in 2 days. Yeah, I can probably get that for an extra $150, $200, and I can probably get it back in 2 days. If you're in Lake County, California, that's where I grew up, guys. Not literally grew up, but that's where as a lender I grew up. Guys, if I rush your appraisal, I might get it back in 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks. You know, it just depends on what's going on in that market, and it may cost $500 or $1,000 more. It depends. There's not many appraisers there. There's like 2, and I think 1 retired. You know, it's a little bit isolated to get there, so it's definitely more expensive. So if you're reading a news article where they're like, oh, appraisals are always $500, and you're like, but my lender has 1,000. Guys, we don't make money off the appraisals. I think people need to know that. I can't mark up an appraisal and make more money. That is a no-no. So I'm not making any money on that appraisal. That is what's being charged. And you may go, well, wait a second, Jen, are you at least shopping these appraisers? We do. Here's the thing. Personally, I don't want the cheapest appraiser ever. You know, because sometimes you'll see like, oh, it's like $350 versus $500, but they're further out of the area. You know, they don't have a good reputation in the real estate community. Like, I've just seen too many problems for that. I don't want the most expensive either. I want someone in the middle, okay? And it's important that, let's say the appraisal comes in low. If I went with the cheapest person and the real estate agents can pick anything apart on that, they're going to use that to not drop the price. I want someone who has a fair price, is local to the market, knows what they're doing. It's very important if you need to negotiate that I have someone that they can't tear apart, okay? I'm being blunt here, guys. I'm being blunt. So look, how long it takes to get the appraisal back will vary as well. Let's say you're in Chicago. Let's go back there again, okay? Easily, without a rush, I can get it back in 7 business days. Easy. Should not be a stress. If I have to rush it, we already covered, probably 2 days. Lake County, California, right? Guys, it might take 11 to 12 business days just to get that first appraisal unless I luck out, you know, and it could, in certain cases, if it's a really unique property, it could take 30 days. No joke, right? You know, there's parts of Wyoming and Montana where it's probably 20 to 30 days to get an appraisal. There's parts of South Carolina where it's 7 business days. You know, it's going to vary. So that could be a question you ask your lender if you have concerns. Generally, what we do is we have an automatic notification that goes out when we order the appraisal. And generally, someone on my team is communicating with the agents when we expect it back. Now, the next question I get is, well, can I go to the appraisal? I want to be there with the appraiser. That's not normal. So do I think you should be there with inspectors? Yes. But is it normal for the buyer to be there with the appraiser? No. Appraisers generally need quiet. They're measuring, they're taking pictures. You know, it's not an interactive talking with you because they don't know what the value is going to be. At that moment, they have to go back. They have to pull comparable sales. They have to look at, you know, does this house have a fireplace? Did this one not? What's the lot size? So if you're there and you're like, hey, is it going to appraise? They don't know yet, okay? They've got to go in. They've got to look at it. They've got to measure it. They've got to photograph it. Then they pull data of sales that have happened around you that are similar in size, similar in type. They look at what they sold, and then they put together the appraisal. Okay, let's have a water break together real quick. I have to, I'm sorry, guys. Okay, so let's say that you've ordered the appraisal and you're like, oh my God, when's it coming back? And we tell you, oh, it's due on the 16th, and it doesn't come back on the 16th. Would I freak out? No. Look, it's another reason I like to order the appraisals early. I feel like a lot of times appraisers have due dates and sometimes they don't make it. And I don't want you guys ordering the appraisal late in the transaction and we've got all the pressure. They have a moving truck. I have a moving truck. You know, and if the appraisal comes in low, it's a disaster. So look, you definitely want to get that appraisal early. Okay. So let's say the appraisal comes in. The appraisal comes in over value. You're like, oh my God, do I have to pay more? No. Don't tell anyone though. That's my top tip. You know, once upon a time when real estate agents, like the buyer's agent, asked for a copy of the appraisal, we would give it to them. I don't anymore. Like, I will give you, my client, the appraisal. I have to, right? And you want it, I get it. You've got to sign something that says you received it. But the real estate agents have no right to the appraisal. The seller has no right to the appraisal. And if the seller's saying they want a copy, no, it's not theirs. If the listing agent wants a copy, no, it's not theirs. If the buyer's agent wants a copy, say it with me, no, it's not there. And the reason why I stopped giving it to the buyer's agent is because I literally had one, and it had come in like 20,000 over. And I was like to the agent, I was like, damn, like this is your first transaction, but you nailed it. It came in 20 high. Here you go. Good job. They told the listing agent, and they still needed to negotiate with the listing agent for some repairs. And the listing agent's like, why would I repair anything? You already told me it came in 20K high, dum-dum, right? Okay, that was a little, no, it wasn't rude. It was true. So that's the thing. I don't even want to like accidentally have it happen. Also, like sometimes, let's say that I put the file together and maybe I put the listing agent as the buyer's agent. I don't want to play with it. I don't want to go near it. No, 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 no. Even if it comes in high, I'm not generally going to tell the agent at all. You'll know, right? You're my client. I work for you. But no, we try to stay away from it. Now, if the appraisal comes in low, that's a different story. If the appraisal comes in low, it's up to you guys, but what I always recommend is we want to get a copy of the appraisal first to your agent. Your agent's going to go through the appraisal. They're going to see if they think the appraiser made any errors. The appraiser is looking at the house that you're buying versus other houses, okay? They're trying to compare apples to apples. So your real estate agent will look at it. You know, CJ on my team, we call him the appraisal guru. He can look at it as well. If the appraisal's legit, you want your agent to ask for a price reduction. At that point, you want the seller to have the appraisal. You want the listing agent to have the appraisal. You want everybody to see, oh, I wanted to buy this house for $500, but it came in at $480. Look at the comparable sales. We need you to drop the price, okay? Asking for someone to drop the price without giving them the appraisal, I've never seen it work. They need to see it. And sometimes what will happen is initially the first 24 hours, it's always no. It's very rare that I see a seller drop their price in 24 hours. You know, they've already cashed that check, so they're not eager to jump on it. Sometimes we'll see it where they're like, well, you need to get another appraisal. You can't just get another appraisal, guys. So there's two things we could do. And you have to give us permission, because we don't, if the seller tells us to do something, we don't work for them. We work for you. You need to tell us to do this. So the first thing is we'd see if the appraisal has any deficiencies. If the appraisal has real deficiencies, sometimes we can get it tossed out so we can order a second appraisal. It is rare that I see an appraisal that has deficiencies. We actually have at Rate an entire appraisal department that can review these appraisals and see, is it not, okay? That's the first thing. Let's say it's not deficient, but the real estate agents are like, they should have used this, they should have used this. Okay, we can go back to the appraiser and say, hey, like, thank you for the appraisal. We got these additional comparable sales from the real estate agents. Can you look at it? We can't bully them, guys. It's illegal. We can't say, oh, you got it wrong. You better increase the price. We can't do that. Also, it's not a benefit to you. Like, you need an honest appraisal once again. So sometimes the appraisers come back and they update the report and the value goes up. With conventional loans, 99% of the time, I don't see that. I see the appraiser back into a corner and justify their price. Getting a conventional appraiser to change their mind is so much harder than VA. And it makes me laugh because people say, oh, VA loans are so difficult, the appraisers. Conventional appraisals are way tougher to get a value moved up. So generally, if the value came in low, unless it's a deficient appraisal, you've got to negotiate to get that price down. Or let's say that you're paying $500, the house appraised at $480, seller won't drop the price, you're doing 3% down. The only way you can buy that house now is you've got to do 3% down and bridge the gap. So you'd be paying the difference between $480 and $500, okay? So look, overall, do I see a lot of drama with conventional appraisals? No, I don't see a lot of drama with any appraisals right now. You know, 21, 22, beginning of 23, everything came in low. The market was moving too quick. But now it's more rare that we see appraisals come in low because the market is starting to accurately price. However, if it does, you just have to understand it's a negotiation. This is one of the reasons I think you should always wait, regardless of loan type, to get the appraisal back before you give notice if you're renting. So that's another reason I think you guys should order it early. Yes, the lender has to give you a copy. Yes, you sign something saying that you've received it. We also have you sign a waiver that says if there's any changes to the appraisal, you waive the 3-day rule. What that basically means is, like, let's say it's Circle and the appraiser has Ave. We're asking you to say, hey, we're okay with going to Docs, even if that change is being made. If there was a value change, this is just technical stuff, okay? It's one of the worst documents you see in the loan package, but I just wanted to bring it up because of that. So look, I hope this video was helpful. Questions, comments, as always, reach out. Yeah, we'd love to be your lender. We fully underwrite every pre-approval, every step of the way. My team is there to answer your questions. And the beautiful thing about my team, on every single transaction, you have 2 loan officers. You have me and you have Christina. You have me, you have Jen, you have me and Sam, me and Linda, me and Amber. You get both of us, and you get the support of my whole team. So we're here to make this as stress-free as possible. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it helped.